You were selected by the universe to witness this epic change. Those words land like a key in a lock you didn't know you had. They are not a reward or a label of superiority. They are an invitation, a recognition of timing, a soft acknowledgement that something within you has aligned with what is about to arrive. Right now you may feel unmoored. You may wake up carrying a low, insistent hum that won't quiet no matter how busy you make yourself. You may notice the things that used to light you up feel flat, or the people and places that once fit you like a glove now pinch in small, persistent ways. You may be restless without knowing what you are restless for. Know this first. These sensations are not failure. They are signals. If this resonates, leave a one-line sign, something like, "I feel it," or hold that recognition quietly in your chest. Either way, let your acknowledgement be a gentle yes to the process that's happening inside you. There is a simple, helpful map for what you are experiencing, one that doesn't require mastery of metaphysical jargon. Think of your inner state as frequency, the tone of your attention, the density of what you carry, the habitual weight of your beliefs and emotions. Your outer life, your relationships, job, daily rhythm, has woven itself around that frequency, creating a timeline that looks like your story so far. When your inner frequency shifts, even by a little, the timeline that matched it begins to loosen at the seams. Old patterns stop fitting. The world doesn't immediately rearrange itself to the new frequency. Instead, you encounter a brief, often disorienting pause, a clearing, before the next pattern can emerge. Frequency is not mystical jargon here. It's a way of noticing how you respond to life. Are you reactive or reflective? Nervous or settled? Curious or closed? Those tonal qualities create a magnet for certain trajectories. Timeline is simply the outward score that plays when your inner tone remains constant. The job you stay in, the friendships that recur, the habits that define your evenings. When the internal pitch changes, the score begins to fray. The universe, for lack of a better word, delivers awareness before visible change so you can recalibrate quietly. You were selected for this delivery, to notice, to prepare, to meet what's coming with some measure of grace. Have you noticed how the things you used to do almost on autopilot now require effort? That is the erosion phase. The supports that once held you start to feel unstable, not because they were wrong, but because you were moving. It might show up as sudden disinterest in routines that used to comfort you, hobbies becoming hollow, conversations feeling like Rolodex spins, weekend plans that leave you drained instead of refreshed. Inside, there's a gentle ungluing, a loosening that sets free parts of you that were compressed for safety or habit. This is not collapse. This is preparation. It can make you want to fill the space immediately with anything familiar, a new distraction, a rushed decision, a rebound relationship, a quick fix that promises security. These are understandable moves. Still, the void is not a problem to be fixed. It is a fertile pause. In the void, your sense of identity often loosens. Old labels like, "I'm the reliable one," "I'm the providing one," "I'm the people pleaser," may not land the same way. Without those labels, you must get curious about who you are when nothing is propped up. That curiosity is the beginning of creation. Solitude becomes a sacred tool here, not as punishment, but as calibration. Solitude is where you hear the faint outline of the new melody that is trying to form. Solitude is not necessarily isolation. It is chosen time to listen without the noise of obligation. There are practical ways to meet the void that do not require you to be an expert in anything metaphysical. Small rituals help. A morning page of uncensored writing, a 10-minute breath practice where you simply notice the inhalation and exhalation, a short walk without your phone. These actions are not magical in themselves. They are simple acts of attention that allow the interior climate to settle. You do not have to fix anything in the void. You simply need to be present to what is happening. Presence is how the universe, as a pattern, can begin to align more coherently with you. Here are 3 journaling prompts to guide you through the void. Use whichever feels accessible.
1. What is fading right now in my life, and what feelings come with that fading? 2. If I had no external expectations, how would I choose to spend my next 3 months? And 3. What small action today would feel like an honest step toward what I long for? These prompts are not prescriptions. They are gentle questions that create a surface for your inner knowing to show itself. Microhook. If you try one of the prompts, pause after the first line and notice what emotion rises. That emotion is informative. As the void settles, something else begins to stir, the rise of intuition. You may have experienced it as an inexplicable pull, a phrase that keeps appearing, a person showing up at just the right moment, a decision that lands in your body before the mind has assembled its reasons. Intuition is not random. It is the emergent voice of your future self, the version of you that already vibrates in alignment with the next timeline. Think of your future self as a lighthouse on a distant shore, sending information in small pulses, a tug toward a course change, a sudden clarity about a relationship, an internal no that arrives with surprising force. The future self is not an external deity handing down laws. It is an organizing intelligence within you, shaped by what you most need to embody. When intuition rises, your body will often be the first to know. Notice sensations, a soft tightening in your stomach, a sudden lightness in your chest, the feeling of a yes that feels like a horizontal expansion rather than a manic leap. These somatic cues are valuable. They're early indicators of alignment. Practice naming them. That's intuition, you might say quietly to yourself, or that's my future self guiding me. Naming, again, turns the diffuse into the actionable. It prevents you from falling back into analysis paralysis and helps you take small, trust-filled steps. A short example. Someone, call him Jonah, keeps hearing the idea of changing cities as a background hum. He cannot explain the logic. His job is stable, his friends are nearby, his apartment is comfortable. Still, his chest tightens when he imagines staying, and something opens when he looks at listings in another town. Jonah begins a small practice. Once a week, he listens to a 10-minute recording of his own voice asking the question, "Where do I feel most alive?" He doesn't make a plan, he just listens. Over months, subtle coincidences occur. An old classmate moves to a city he's been considering and invites him to visit. A job opportunity arises that aligns with his values. The world begins to reflect the internal pull. This is the pattern of intuition guiding outward change. Remember, the rise of intuition is not an instruction to leap blindly. It is an invitation to follow a thread. You test it with small experiments, a phone call, a short trip, a conversation that feels more honest than usual. These experiments are low-resistance ways to discover whether the pull is a meaningful trajectory or simply a passing breeze. Keep a stance of curiosity. The future self will often be patient, providing nudges rather than demands. Throughout erosion, the void, and the rise of intuition, you will encounter what feels like increased sensitivity. You may be more moved by music, color, or small acts of kindness. You may find yourself withdrawing from overstimulation. Your sleep might change. Your appetite might shift. These are not malfunctions. They are recalibrations. Treat them with curiosity and gentleness. When you feel overwhelmed, slow down and name the sensation. I am feeling overstimulated, or I notice my chest tightening. Naming is stabilizing. It brings the storm under a sky, and sky offers perspective. There are simple practices to anchor you during these shifts without demanding too much. 2 optional rituals you can use right away are offered below. Choose one or both, or neither. The point is to provide tools, not rules. 1. A short public or private declaration. This is symbolic. It helps you mark an internal alignment outwardly. If you want to make it visible, you can write in a comment or a journal, I step into the reality that was waiting for me.
If you prefer private anchoring, whisper it to yourself in the mirror. Write it on a scrap of paper and fold it into a pocket for the day, or say it aloud during a quiet moment. The act is an anchor, a physical declaration that begins to shape your attention. 2. A 3-minute breath calibration. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Breathe out for 6. Repeat 10 times. As you breathe, imagine a soft light gathering behind your sternum, a quiet warmth that expands outward with each exhale. This is not a technique to force change. It is a practice to help your nervous system notice safety while change is occurring. Use it whenever you feel the edges of panic or disorientation. Microhook. Try the breath now, 3 minutes, and notice how the body's tone shifts. That shift is information. As intuition continues to rise, the world will start to present small confirmations, a phrase repeated in different places, a chance conversation that contains a key insight, an email that aligns with a thought you had the day before. These are not miracles guaranteed by effort, they are signals, the patterning of possibility beginning to take shape. Pay attention to them, but do not clutch them as proof. Notice them, receive them, and lean into the guidance they offer without constructing a rigid plan that must be forced into place. An important posture through all of this is patience. That word can sound bland when you feel restless, yet patience does not mean passivity. It means a steadier attention to the inner barometer. It means choosing actions that are generative rather than reactionary, a kind conversation, a steady presence in work that matters, a thoughtful decline of things that drain you. Patience with the process is a form of strength. It keeps you available to the right openings rather than exhausting yourself on false starts. You were selected, remember, not because you are perfect, but because your current trajectory matters to the larger unfolding. Selection does not signify specialness in a way that separates you from others. It simply means that in this moment, you are aligned enough to notice the signal. That alignment is a responsibility of tenderness. It asks you to steward your attention, to turn toward what feels alive and away from what numbs you. It invites trust. Trust in your body's wisdom. Trust in the timing of synchronicity. Trust that you can navigate voids without losing yourself. As this movement continues, one common fear arises, the worry that choosing this path will cost you everything you have built. Loss is real in the sense that some relationships, roles, and routines will no longer fit, but loss in the context of transformation is more accurately described as conversion. Energy freed from form that no longer suits will return to you as space, attention, and possibility. You are not being emptied to be punished, you are being cleared to be remade. Picture a field left fallow for a season. The crops you have known are gone, but the soil has richer potential for new growth. That potential is not a guarantee that any particular outcome will occur. It is a probability that rises with your coherence. Begin to practice small acts of alignment. These are not grand vows, they are practical experiments. Protect your mornings for undistracted attention. Set a boundary that feels brave and fair. Choose one project that aligns with curiosity rather than obligation. Keep your experiments low stakes so you can test the currents without scaring away the subtle forces you're starting to sense. Each small step is data, and data informs the next move. Another prompt for reflection. When do you feel most alive during an ordinary day? Which activities leave you wired and which leave you nourished? Answering these questions with specific examples, a conversation that made you laugh for genuine reasons, a task that lost you in flow, helps you identify where your new frequency wants to play.
Use this insight to design experiments. Invite that friend for a longer conversation. Block an hour for creative work. Say no to one thing this week that chips away at your energy. Microhook. Keep a small resonance list for a week. Each night, write 3 moments you noticed felt alive. Watch what repeats. The future self will speak in small, consistent nudges. It rarely offers grand visions immediately. Instead, it sends the texture of possibility, a feeling of warmth in the chest when you imagine a certain kind of relationship, a steady pull toward a style of work that matches your attention, a sense of lightness when you think of a particular environment. These textures are the vocabulary your intuition uses. Learn to read them. They are the blueprints before the builders arrive. At this point, you are moving toward a threshold. The erosion has cleared old forms. The void has held a generative silence. Intuition is rising like a tide. There is a subtle shift in tempo. What used to feel like effort becomes less frantic and more like careful tuning. You will notice moments of clear neutrality, a quiet center where decisions feel less dramatic and more like natural adjustments. This neutrality is not numbness, it is clarity. It is the calm that arrives when your inner instruments are tuning to the same key. Before the external reweaving begins, there is often one more quiet strand to attend to, the habit of explanation. Humans love narrative. You might catch yourself creating elaborate stories about why everything is changing, inventing villains, or recasting past decisions as mistakes. These explanations feel productive because they make a story of control, but they can also anchor you to old timelines. Practice noticing when you are narrating for the sake of feeling secure. Ask, does this story help me move toward what feels alive, or does it keep me replaying what no longer serves?
If it keeps you stuck, try telling a different, simpler story. I am in a transition that is preparing me for better alignment. Simple reframes like this do not ignore complexity. They simply redirect attention toward possibility. You may wonder about timing. How long will this take? There is no universal timetable. Some shifts are compressed into weeks. Others unfold over months or years. Your only reliable metric is coherence. When your inner state and your outer decisions begin to harmonize, you are moving toward stabilization. Until then, treat time as friend rather than enemy. Track small wins, a conversation that felt easier, a decision that no longer produces sweaty stress, a door that opens with no forced effort. These are markers of progress. As you continue, invite a posture of gratitude that is honest, not forced. Gratitude does not mean you are content with all present realities. It means you acknowledge the support you have and the parts of you that have persisted through difficulty. Gratitude is stabilizing because it collects the scattered energies into a steadier flow. You can journal 3 things you are genuinely grateful for each morning. They can be as simple as hot water, a reliable friend, or a clear hour for work. The list is a tiny anchor that reminds you your life contains resources even as it changes. At the edge of the next phase, where internal coherence begins to attract external synchronicity in more tangible ways, there will be tests. Not tests as punishments, but invitations to discriminate between impulses and intuition, between fear-driven choices and curiosity-driven steps. In those moments, return to small experiments. Test the pull with a low-stakes action that requires only a day or an afternoon. If the pull is true, the world will make room. If it is a passing mood, the experiment will show you that too, without cost. You were selected to witness this epic change because you are at the point where observation matters. Your witnessness is part of the process.
When you observe with compassion and clarity, you create less friction for the unfolding intelligence that wants to reorganize your life. Witnessing is not passive, it is an act of held attention. It's like standing at the edge of a river, watching the ripples gather before a new current forms. If you lean in with soft curiosity, you will notice the pattern of arrival. If you step backward in fear, the pattern may slow its pace with you. There will be relational realignments. People who loved the old version of you may struggle with your change. Some might step back. Others will step forward who recognize the new tone. Neither reaction is a moral indictment. Relationships are maps of mutual resonance. As your frequency shifts, the map redraws. Treat these changes with gentleness. Offer explanations when appropriate, but do not exhaust yourself proving your inner experience to skeptics. Your inner clarity is the compass. Share it with those who ask, and respect your need for boundaries with those who don't understand. As intuition deepens, you may begin to receive small practical cues. A book recommendation that opens a long-closed question, an unexpected opportunity to test a new skill, an energetic sense that a conversation should occur. These are the first threads of external reweaving, subtle and often easily missed. Begin to keep a small notebook or digital note named Signals, where you jot each meaningful coincidence. Over time, you will see patterns, the same themes repeating until they coalesce into a clear path. Patterns are your best evidence in a period when nothing feels yet decided. You are approaching a turning point. There will be a moment when inner coherence reaches a threshold, a sense of quiet certainty that is not loud or dramatic, but steady, like the sun rising behind clouds. In that hour, decisions will feel simpler, and opportunities will present themselves with less force and more fit. This is not a promise that everything will be effortless. There will still be work, sometimes messy, sometimes slow, but the work will be aligned, and alignment sustains you through labor in a way that dissonance cannot. Pause here and take stock. Reflect on these questions for a moment. What is eroding in my life that I can allow to go without shame? Where am I tempted to fill the void with distraction rather than attention? How does my body signal truth to me? Answering these will help you step more intentionally into what is next. You were selected to witness this epic change. That selection is not a command to rush. It is an honor that asks for steady, compassionate tending. The next phase, the one where external synchronicities begin to accelerate and visible change becomes inevitable, is coming. You do not have to force it. You simply need to continue to listen, test with kindness, and hold space for the new to arrive. Soon, the world will begin to mirror your internal shifts in ways you can point to. Invitations will align with your priorities. Resources will show up that support your experiments. Relationships will either deepen or make room. Work will begin to ask less for the person you were and more for the person you are becoming. But before that reweaving completes, there is one final interior tightening you must navigate: the integration of courage. Courage here is not dramatic heroism. It is the small, quiet agreement to choose what resounds with your chest even when it risks discomfort. It is the daily practice of saying no to what drains you and yes to what feels like a possibility. It's choosing a boundary that will temporarily cause upset rather than betraying your truth to keep peace. Courage asks you to risk a little friction because alignment asks for a price: honesty. Honest living produces short-term ripples that lead to long-term coherence. Prepare a short ritual for that moment of courage. It can be as simple as writing one sentence: "I step into the reality that was waiting for me," and folding it into your wallet, or speak it quietly before you make a brave choice. This act is not magical in itself. It simply marks your intention and helps you embody a new timeline with a lineage of attention. You are not alone in this. Others are shifting in parallel, Friends, neighbors, colleagues, strangers whose timing intersects with yours. We are moving through a collective phase where many personal recalibrations are happening at once. That is why synchronicities can feel amplified now, because the field around you is becoming hospitable to new patterns. When you witness others changing, extend compassion. Their journey will look different from yours. Comparison will only pull you back into old timelines. As the intuition becomes more insistent, you may find that your decisions become simpler. The binary of yes-no clarifies. Opportunities that once seemed attractive now feel hollow. That clarity is a gift. Use it to prune without regret. The cost of pruning is small compared to the cost of dragging dead weight into your next chapter. By now, you have likely noticed one more thing, a subtle steadiness arriving in your body. It may be a quiet interlude where anxiety is less reactive, where choices feel more like calibrations, where joy tastes cleaner and sharper. That steadiness is the nascent core of your new timeline. Nurture it, protect it, invite experiences and people who honor it. This is where we arrive at a transition. You have moved through erosion, navigated the void, and felt intuition rise. You have practiced small experiments, held gentle rituals, and begun to notice signals accumulating into patterns. The next movement, the moment when internal coherence begins to solidify into visible external alignment, is approaching. In the space ahead, you will encounter the first obvious synchronicities, invitations that fit like well-worn gloves, and the start of a reweaving that feels both precise and surprisingly inevitable. Before that begins, take one more breath and notice how your body responds to the idea of change becoming visible. Hold that sensation without forcing an outcome. The universe chose you to witness this because you can hold it with both sensitivity and steadiness. The work you are doing now, the listening, the small steps, the courage, prepares you for what will arrive. Keep your attention soft and your boundaries clear. Trust your future self's voice as it becomes stronger. In the next moments, opportunities will begin to knock in gentle, unmistakable ways, and you will know how to answer. Notice how your life begins to answer differently to the questions you ask. Once you were used to pulling hard at outcomes. Now you are learning to pose cleaner questions. Instead of asking, "How do I make this work?" you might start asking, "What feels like an honest step right now?" That change in questioning matters. It directs a different current of attention. The universe, understood here as a responsive pattern rather than a judge, meets clean questions with clearer signals. This is one reason why slowing so often matters. Clarity begets cleaner feedback. As external threads begin to knot together, you learn to distinguish between acceleration and desperation. Acceleration feels like a ride that gains smooth speed. Desperation feels like clinging. Acceleration asks that you meet opportunities with discernment. When a possibility appears, pause for a breath. Sense into whether your body opens or contracts. Does the idea expand you gently, or does it force a tightening like a belt made too small? Use your body as a filter. Over time, these somatic checks become reliable. They are the living sensors of your alignment. Microhook. When an opportunity shows up, ask, "Does this feel like a widening or a narrowing?" You may find one of the most powerful skills to cultivate at this stage is clear, concise communication. When your frequency shifts, the people around you do not automatically know how you are changing. They still attempt to engage you from old maps. A brief, honest sentence can prevent a small misunderstanding from deforming into a larger one.
It can sound like, I'm shifting priorities right now. I need less social energy and more quiet mornings. Or, I can't take that on this season. It's not aligned with the focus I'm testing. These phrases are not cold refusals, but calibrations. They teach others how to meet you in your new tone. There is also practical work to keep momentum without forcing the pace. Reserve an hour each week as alignment practice, not a to-do hour, but a laboratory. Use it to experiment. Take a call with someone you've been curious about. Try the low-stakes version of a new activity. Draft an idea without committing to execution. Give yourself permission to test without attachment. This laboratory mindset keeps fear from making permanence out of a trial and helps you gather the gentle data the future self sends. Microhook. Keep a small list called Tiny Experiments. Let it be a place for one-day trials, short conversations, brief visits. At some point, you will notice a tangible tightening of inner coherence that the field can no longer ignore. It's subtle at first. A door you thought closed opens with ease. A conversation lands in an unexpected place of mutual understanding. A resource arrives that fits the rhythm you are building. These moments may feel like lucky breaks, but luck is not the whole story. It is the visible outcome of invisible ordering. You are participating in that ordering through sustained attention, honest experimentation, and a willingness to be present to the small nudges. When synchronicities begin to compound, keep a practice of simple gratitude that recognizes them without creating attachment.
Say thank you privately when a phrase repeats or when a meeting arrives precisely when needed. This is not a transactional model. It does not imply that gratitude manufactures outcomes on command. It does, however, cultivate a receptive posture that lowers friction between you and the patterning intelligence animating the field. A short, concrete example might help here. Imagine Ava, who for years had invested herself in a community project that felt meaningful but misaligned with her creative calling. As her inner frequency changed, she began to decline leadership roles that felt administrative and started showing up at smaller, more creative gatherings. She kept a tiny experiments list and tried hosting a low-pressure salon for reading and discussion. The first salon felt like a soft success. The second drew a guest who happened to run a small nonprofit with an opening that matched Ava's creative gifts. Months later, Ava shifted roles in her professional life in a way that allowed her to keep the values she cared about, while moving into work that felt like play. Her transition looked accidental to onlookers, but for her, it was the direct result of sustained, low-stakes alignment work. Microhook. Notice, which one small experiment could you try this week? There will also be times when the universe's response feels delayed. Impatience is natural. Don't shame yourself for it. Remember that systemic change has its own timing. Sometimes the inner shift completes quickly, and the world needs to reorganize. Other times, the world moves first in small ways, and your internal adjustments follow. Both directions are valid. What matters is that you continue to steward attention toward what resonates. Physical alignment matters here too, in ways that are practical and simple. You do not need a regimen or a brand. You need small acts that make your body a reliable instrument for sensing. Keep your sleep rhythm as consistent as possible, even when your schedule is messy. Eat in ways that help you feel steady rather than reactive. When a meal makes you feel heavy and dull, note that as information. Move in ways that bring clarity, a brisk walk, a short sequence of stretching, dancing for 5 minutes to a song that lifts you. These are not prescriptions for perfection. They are tactile ways to reduce noise so intuition can be heard more clearly.
As your internal coherence grows, integration becomes the next necessary step. Integration is not a dramatic ceremony. It's the slow folding of new qualities into daily life. After an intuition-guided experiment yields a positive result, spend time reflecting on what felt different. Write down the decisions you made and the small leaps you took. These notes become a map for future actions and a proof archive you can return to when doubt creeps in. Integration also asks for ritualized rest, moments where you do not analyze results, but simply consolidate them.
A 20-minute walk with no phone, a quiet cup of tea with attention on warmth and taste, a slow breathing practice. These small consolidations help your nervous system absorb new patterns. There will be friction to meet. Not every experiment yields success. Some attempts will fizzle. That is part of the economy of risk here. Treat failures as feedback rather than moral verdicts. Ask, what did this test teach me? Was my timing off? Did I escalate too quickly? Did I misunderstand the pull? Learn one small lesson and file the rest. Over time, your learning curve becomes an asset rather than a source of shame. You may also face critics, internal and external. Your inner critic will narrate the worst-case scenario with a theatrical flair. External critics may confuse your change with rejection. When critique arises, practice the tidy response. Listen for kernels of truth without ingesting the rhetoric that seeks to pin you to old versions. Ask yourself whether the feedback is useful for your trajectory. If it is, integrate it. If it is not, let it pass. Maintain a circle of trusted listeners who can offer grounded perspectives without emotional volatility. Microhook. Who were the two people you trust to help you sort a decision? Keep their names handy. Community matters, but selectively. You don't need a crowd that celebrates every shift. You need a few people who will reflect your clarity back to you. These are companions who can say, "I see you changing," without either exaggerating your importance or minimizing the difficulty. Sometimes your most valuable companions are those who are not changing in the same way, but who hold consistent steadiness. Their presence helps you tether when the void feels too empty. There will be moments when both your courage and your clarity are tested together. Maybe someone asks you to take on a role that promises security, but asks you to betray your new priorities. Maybe an old relationship seeks to reinstate its former pattern. In these moments, return to your laboratory and your tiny experiments. Test a boundary softly first. You might be surprised at the stability that gentle firmness produces. Courage can be iterative. You do not need to declare a sweeping new identity in one dramatic meeting. Often, the most transformative courage is incremental, a consistent line drawn across small daily decisions. At the point where inner coherence and external patterning intersect reliably, you enter stabilization. Stabilization is not a static plateau. It's a more consistent field of functioning where choices feel less like ledger entries and more like natural posture. There is less wobble, less reactivity, and more space for long-term cultivation. In stabilization, your energy allocation becomes more efficient. You stop leaking attention on things that used to hijack you. You notice fewer surprises that throw you off balance. The future self's voice becomes steadier and more precise. This is when the final activation often appears. Activation is the moment that feels like a click. After months of steady tuning, the world begins to reflect the new arrangement in ways that are clearly attributable to your inner shift. It is not a single event for most people, but a cluster of confirmations that together make things feel reliably different. A project moves from concept to scheduled execution. A relationship transforms into something honest and sustainable. A career pivot becomes not just conceivable, but necessary and supported. You may feel a steady certainty that was absent before, not arrogance, but a calm knowledge that your choices are no longer misaligned with your inner tone. When activation happens, it will likely begin small, a check-in from someone precisely when you need clarity, a contract that fits the hours you can honor, an invitation to an opportunity that matches the skills you have been quietly honing. These openings will often require you to act with clarity and integrity. They may ask for a yes that carries practical consequences. Respond with your habitual test and learn attitude. Take actions that are generous with curiosity and tight on commitment. This balance keeps you agile and prevents you from treating each opportunity as a make-or-break moment. Microhook. When the first obvious synchronicity arrives, pause to note the exact circumstances, time, who was present, what you felt. This builds your evidence bank. It's important to remember that external alignment does not eliminate the inner work. You may now face new challenges that match your level of expansion. Bigger roles require deeper reserves of self-care, clearer boundaries, and more precise communication. The tasks change, but the practices remain useful. Small experiments, short consolidations, and a laboratory mindset. Continue to cultivate the daily rhythms that support stability, morning attention, deliberate rest, and a weekly alignment hour. Part of your stewardship now is generosity with discernment. You will have more resources, more clarity, more invitations to contribute. Offer your gifts with care. Notice where giving nourishes you and where it drains you. Learn to say yes to a project because it magnifies your bandwidth, not because it validates you. Say no when a request would dilute your clarity. Generosity flourishes when it is a choice, not an obligation. As you move through activation into fuller expression, keep rehearsing humility. The selection you received is not a claim to be above others. It is an invitation to serve the unfolding with fidelity. Use your clarity to help others by modeling steadiness rather than preaching it. Share your experiments and your failures as usable data rather than morality plays. When people ask about your process, describe the small steps and the patient attention rather than dramatic narratives of destiny.
This builds trust around you and prevents your experience from becoming a pedestal. Now, let's offer a second concrete example to illustrate stabilization and activation. Consider Leo, who spent years in finance feeling the slow erosion of his inner interest in numbers for profit alone. He began small. He took one afternoon a week volunteering with a nonprofit that used data for social good. Over months, he kept tiny experiments, shepherding a pilot analysis here, mentoring a volunteer there. He named these efforts in a notebook and noticed the recurring feeling of embodied clarity after each session. Gradually, his skill set and his values aligned. A former colleague introduced him to a startup that needed someone just like Leo, someone with technical skill and an ethical frame. The offer required adjustments and came with lower pay initially, but it matched his new frequency. Leo said yes slowly and structured the transition with small, stabilizing rituals, a weekly planning hour, a clear boundary around evenings, and a 3-minute breath calibration before major meetings. Over a year, his work became less a job and more a practice field. That shift is the visible result of the steady, patient work you have been doing. Microhook. Which one small generosity could you offer this month that aligns with your new frequency? As you approach the final pages of this transition, there is a particular quality you will recognize: quiet authority. It feels like arriving at a place where your choices are guided more by inner criterion than external applause. You no longer need to prove the shift. It proves itself in the way your days organize and the kind of people that gather around you.
This quiet authority is compassionate. It refuses to perform and instead invites others into a space where their clarity may also emerge. Before we close, here's a gentle set of practical rituals and reflective prompts you can choose from to anchor this final phase. Each is optional. Use what fits. 3 brief reflective prompts for consolidation. 1. List 5 small actions you took in the past month that felt aligned. How did each action change the tone of your day? 2. Identify one boundary you set that created surprising freedom. Describe how it altered your energy. 3. Name 2 people who reflected your change back to you. How did their response help or hinder your process? 2 optional anchoring rituals. A. The pocket sentence. Write one sentence that captures your intention, concise, true, and present tense. Something like, I step into the reality that was waiting for me. Fold it and carry it in your wallet or place it under your pillow for 3 nights. Open it on the morning you expect to make a small decision and read it aloud if you want. This acts as a tactile, private anchor. Use it sparingly. Ritual potency grows with intention. B. The 3-minute recalibration. Sit or stand comfortably. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold 1. Breathe out for 6. As you exhale, imagine tension leaving the body like a sigh. After 3 minutes, place one hand over your chest and another over your belly. Ask, silently, what is one clear next step I can take that feels like a small yes? Wait for the body's sensation, a warmth, a pull, a soft release, and treat that as your data point. Act on it within 24 hours if it is low stakes. Microhook. Try the pocket sentence now if you feel called. Keep it private or share it publicly. The choice is yours. Now, the symbolic anchor. This is optional and should feel available, not required. If you feel moved to mark this threshold outwardly, choose one format that honors your comfort. Speak the sentence aloud, write it in a journal, fold it into your pocket, or post it in a public space. The sentence we offer is simple and functional. I step into the reality that was waiting for me. If you choose to make it public, remind yourself and others this act is for your alignment, not for performance. If you choose to keep it private, whisper it or write it where only you will see. Both routes accomplish the same purpose. They shift attention and create an energetic breadcrumb that your mind and body can follow. One final practice before we close, an invitation to witness your own movement. Take a moment now to breathe and scan your body from feet to crown. Notice where you feel steady and where sensations linger, tightness, warmth, quiet. Greet each sensation with curiosity. Say internally, I see you. Then ask yourself one tender question. What small next step will honor this particular place in my body today? It might be as simple as standing for 5 minutes with your palms open, or emailing a friend to schedule a real conversation, or saying no to one thing that would drain your energy. Choose the smallest honest next step and do it. You were selected to witness this epic change. That selection is both a privilege and a call to tender stewardship. You are not being prepared for an easier life only. You are being prepared to carry a truer one. That truth shows up in small ways: steadier breath, clearer priorities, more honest speech, and a deepening capacity to be present. Continue to treat yourself with compassion as you move through the final integrations. The work of transformation is not always elegant. There will be days of mess and moments when you doubt the process. Return to your experiments, revisit your notes, and remember that the field is patient in its own way. As you move forward, cultivate 2 habits that will keep your momentum sustainable: the habit of small experiments and the habit of compassionate witnessing. The first keeps you curious and alive. The second keeps you tender and durable. Together, they create a rhythm that supports long-term coherence. If this message landed for you, If it stirred recognition or even a small ache of readiness, consider making an intentional, optional mark.
You can share the sentence publicly in a comment, write it privately in a journal, whisper it before sleep, or fold it into a pocket. Choose what feels honest. A suggested form: I step into the reality that was waiting for me. Say it once. You do not need to repeat it as a mantra. Let it be a line that organizes your attention. Now take a breath. Notice the steadiness that exists already, no matter how slight. Trust that the small actions you choose today are the scaffolding of the visible shifts to come. Keep listening to the future self. Keep testing kindly. Keep holding your witnessness with compassion. The universe, in its quiet way, noticed you and sent this selection. You did not stumble here by accident. You were invited because you are capable of holding and tending a new pattern. Walk forward with patience and clarity, and when the world begins to mirror the changes you have prepared for, receive them with both humility and joy. This is not an ending, but an opening. Step into it.